This is Sunny Hostin talking about Brittany Mahomes. For those of you who don't know Brittany Mahomes, she is the wife to Pat Mahomes, who is the QB of the Kansas City Chiefs. Brittany Mahomes recently found herself in controversy because she liked a post from Donald Trump on his Instagram, a post where he laid out his policy prescription for the United States of America. People were hopping on Instagram and seeing Brittany Mahomes liked a post from Trump. She must be a Trump supporter. How disgusting. We must lead her and flog her in the town square for liking an Instagram post from Donald Trump. And Sunny Hostin had to comment on this. And it seems as though she was actually urged not to talk about it in the way she did on The View. For those of you who don't know how The View works, these women probably meet in the morning. They and their teams will bring together stories that they want to talk about, and they will discuss talking points in this sort of preset nature before they go out and do the performance that you guys end up seeing on TV. So presumably they talked about Brittany Mahomes beforehand, and Sunny Hostin was told really not to go in this direction, but decided to anyways. Let's hear what she has to say.
Answer. And that does make me hopeful, actually, that this swift effect will speak to more women about the true character of Donald Trump and will turn them away. But to your initial point, I know you said we weren't going to talk about it, but I was. It just seems to me that since she is in an interracial marriage, she should have known that to support a racist is problematic. Her children are biracial, and her family is one of the families that in the 70s could not have lived in any of Donald Trump's buildings. So it just seems to me that maybe she's just not that politically savvy, or maybe she's just not read in.
Granted,
but it's
all we know is that she liked a Trump post. We don't know. She hasn't stated that she supported him, but that's fair to interpret that she may have. But we don't know that she's a supporter.
First of all, what? I mean, to the last lady, even if you did know that she's a supporter, what Sunny Hostin just said is disgusting and disrespectful. It very well could be that both Brittany Mahomes and Pat Mahomes are Trump supporters. So what are you going to say to somebody when both parties of the interracial relationship are Trump supporters? I'm an interracial person. I'm a Trump supporter, at least in this case between these two candidates. So what are you talking about? And to look people in the face and say, because you're a certain race, I think that you should have a certain set of political beliefs. It's just astounding to me. And Sunny Hostin seems to never learn her lesson, no matter how many times she's smacked in the face with facts and evidence. It just doesn't seem to hit for her. And she is so dedicated to her own ideology that she can't see through it or past it for more than 2 seconds. It's a really disgusting thing to bring Brittany Mahomes' marriage and family into a discussion of her perceived political views because she liked an Instagram post. And she leans on this idea that Brittany Mahomes' family would not have been allowed to even stay in any of the different Trump facilities in the 70s. And this is because Trump was actually, I believe, sued because there were allegations that he would not rent out spaces or allow Black people into his hotels and businesses. And they had brought up a property manager who said that Trump was responsible for this. This was actually a sort of top-down command that I'm not allowed to do this with Black families. Now, I can't speak to whether or not that was actually the case. They deem this to be true in the 70s, and of course put out this whole racial narrative about Donald Trump since then and have accused him of being a racist. But I've seen that man do a whole lot for Black people since then. So I'm not sure where the racism currently stands. I can also bring up this story. If we're going to bring up the 1970s with Trump and his apparent impact on Black people who wanted to rent or wanted to stay in his facilities, Donald Trump actually found himself in a bit of hot water in Palm Beach at his Mar-a-Lago establishment, where in West Palm Beach, if you were Jewish or Black, you were not allowed to be a member of these clubs. You were not allowed to participate. It was part of the culture there. It was very a racialized area and situation to be in. Donald Trump actually said, you know what? No, we're not going to do this. And again, this was in the 1990s. I'll show you here. Donald Trump insisted on including Jews and Black people at the Palm Beach golf course in the 1990s. Now, you'll see here This is obviously 20 years past whatever these 1970s allegations are. It says Trump shot back with maximum effort, as reported by the Washington Post, Mary Jordan and Rosalind Helderman on November 14th, 2015. Quote, Trump undercut his adversaries with a searing attack, claiming that local officials seemed to accept the establishment of the established private clubs in town that had excluded Jews and blacks while imposing tough rules on his inclusive one. It says the Washington Post also reports that Trump lawyers sent every member of the town council copies of 2 classic movies about discrimination: A Gentleman's Agreement about a journalist who pretends to be Jewish to expose anti-Semitism, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, a white couple's reaction to their daughter bringing home a black fiance. So, okay, this man who was apparently, according to a property manager at the time, saying we're not going to rent to black people, not even like 15 to 20 years later, is sending copies of movies about racial discrimination to town council members and saying, guess what? You guys can engage in your little like racist boys club where you don't allow Jewish people and you don't allow black people into your establishment. Mar-a-Lago is not going to be that. And since then, and probably before then, as these are just narratives that they like to run with, I'm not seeing much evidence of this man being a racist. And for you to assume, because Brittany Mahomes is married to somebody of a particular racial identity and has kids that are interracial, that needs to inform her support of a particular political candidate or party, makes you ignorant. She is not ignorant, as they're trying to assume she is in this sort of condescending manner. Maybe she's not politically savvy. She is not the ignorant one. You are the ignorant one. And it's crazy because I don't know how many times Sunny Hostin needs to be like debunked or like brought to task over the things she says. She never, ever learns. Not once. Ugh.
And if we're talking about racial infractions from 1973, where was that energy with Joe Biden, who she's been shilling for the past 3.5 years?
Right.
In 1973, Biden said the two-party system is good for the Negro. He also said you can't go to a 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts unless you have an Indian accent. He eulogized KKK member Robert Byrd in 1977 and said, unless we can do something about this, my children are going to grow up in a jungle, that jungle being a racial jungle. And of course, he's did the if you don't vote for me, you ain't black thing. So even after all that, though, I mean, those are like things that have been dug up on Joe Biden. I don't necessarily believe that Joe Biden's a racist. I mean, he's obviously said some off-color things, but it's just such bad faith to go after Trump for this thing from 40 years ago now. And not to mention, I also just looked up a quick NPR article before we spoke about this. And that article from 2018 says that the case was eventually settled 2 years later after Trump tried to countersue the Justice Department for $100 million for making false statements. It was never proven that an order was given on the part of Trump to discriminate against black tenants. And
right.
It was never proven that he had any knowledge that was going on, and he had never had to admit any fault. So I don't know what the statutes or what constitutes slander in this case, but I'd maybe be watching out if I was Sunny Hostin. But also just the asymmetry there between the Trump and the Biden infractions, which are, arguably, you could say if it's bad, it's worse on Biden's side than this spurious case. I just, where are you at, Sonny? Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, like, you're also looking at Biden, who, when they wanted to desegregate schools, he was like, no, I don't want that. He adamantly fought against the desegregation of schools. So it's just crazy to watch this play out. And we, of course, Donald Trump appeared on The View in the past, and The View like kissed his ass. They're like, oh, Donald Trump, we love you. We know you're such a great guy or whatever, I don't know if it's because he was a Democrat at the time, and now since he's, done the whole party switch thing, they no longer like this man. All it is that the media, I feel, in essence, gets like a memo of what their stances are supposed to be, and then they run with that, and they run full force with it. And now Donald Trump is in the doghouse, and you have to call him a racist, and you have to say that he's exercising his white privilege, and you have to say that black people shouldn't vote for him, and that is what they'll do. They are media-trained individuals who will do whatever it takes to remain in their position, and it doesn't matter whether or not what they're saying is actually true. So if we're going to accuse Donald Trump of being racist, please first look in the mirror, because what you're saying is racist, Sunny Hostin. And then secondly, look at your other candidate. And, you know, people say Biden's not the candidate anymore. It's Miss Kamala Harris. She sat right next to Biden day in and day out for how long now, working alongside that man who has way more racist comments in his past and in his present. Remember, poor kids are just as good as white kids, okay? So in his past and present, far more racialized, racist statements than Donald Trump has ever said in his entire life. Okay.
Yeah, wasn't Kamala saying that little girl was me about being the girl on the segregated bus to Joe Biden, accusing him implicitly of racism?
Yep. We just have to remember, guys. Don't let them lie to you enough that you forget what the truth actually is. It's just so crazy to watch it. It's so disrespectful. I hope Brittany Mahomes responds to Sunny Hostin bringing up her family and her children to make a point like this. Oh, it's just utterly disgusting.